Alright, hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to FSD. Happy New Year to everyone. It is the 1st of January 2026 now, and just the other night I did end up getting version 14.2.2.2. And then on top of that, we got a little bit of snow last night, so still relatively early in the morning, about 10 o'clock in the morning. So I figured it'd be a good idea to kind of not only try out the new version, but also try out the new version with a little bit of snow to deal with on the way to the park, where I'll be starting today's video just like the last one. There was a little bit of slippage. I came here on FSD, but you know, it did slip and slide a little bit after a turn. So it'll be interesting to see how the roads are kind of paved around here, if it's going to run into those issues again. But I do find that it is pretty cautious. Seems like it is actually able to kind of determine that the roads are not, clearly marked anymore, and then there might be some other limiting conditions that the vehicle needs to deal with. So we're going to start this drive here. Same as the last video, we're going to head over to Acme to just see, kind of have a consistent start to my videos so we can at least see if that route or how it reacts and how it drives into the parking lot is any different from version to version. And then from there, I'm going to be doing a little short loop through a lot of residential areas in and around my neighborhood, because I'm just assuming that the roads may not be very clean or paved, or not paved, plowed, at least this early, and we're probably going to see a little bit of a mixture of snow, ice, slush, just a lot of different conditions. Certainly different conditions than the last drive where the roads are pretty clear. So it'll be a real quick shot on over to Acme here, and then probably going to be a much shorter video than the last one. I just wanted to get out and try out the new version, see if I notice anything. But, unfortunately I wasn't recording when the vehicle slipped. It totally recovered itself. I did not need to take over. It just seemed like it kind of chose to accelerate through a turn where maybe, a more experienced or educated driver would choose not to do, especially when there's snow and ice on the road and slick and not so much traction. But either way, I was impressed to see that the vehicle at FSD did manage to recover, and nothing safety related. We didn't go into oncoming lane or anything like that. It just real brief instance of slipping and then continued on our way. But that brings up an interesting point, or an interesting talking point, about the capabilities not only of the vehicle, because this is an all-wheel drive Model Y. It should be able to handle these sort of conditions at least a little bit better than rear-wheel drive or front-wheel drive vehicles, but the capabilities of the vehicle in tandem with full self-driving, and what the software can do and how it kind of makes its decisions, and I think is really interesting. So as we can see here, or maybe you can't see in the camera, but not very clear markings on the road. This road hasn't been paved very well. Technically there is a turn lane over here that the vehicle could have gone into, but taking a more cautious approach here, as it seems like we're going to be heading into the parking lot the same way that we usually do, making a left and then making a right up ahead. Not a very not a very well plowed parking lot, so it'll be interesting to see if there is any sort of slipping or sliding. Most people are probably going to be driving a little bit more cautiously in these conditions. Another factor that FSD is going to have to deal with here is it's not going to be very clear where the parking spots are in the lot, and we're going to have to try our very best to kind of find a decent place to park and not just park in a random space that technically isn't a parking space. Just one of those things that you kind of have to deal with in the Northeast, especially after snow. Something that a human could do probably pretty easily. But, you know, the machine and a computer, we'll see kind of what decision makes here. If it just noses in here, that's fine. I don't think this is like a great parking spot. It definitely looks like people to the left and right of us are kind of not very centered, but, you know, it'll serve its purpose for right now at least, especially when the parking lot's pretty covered. We're going to head over to our next destination here. Backing out, clear to the left, clear to the right. Not sure it's gonna a little bit of a hesitation there. Not sure if it's gonna have enough space here. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, so it was definitely, it seemed like it was unsure of itself backing out if it really had enough space. But, you know, after a little bit of a pause there, it did decide to inch back ever so slightly more and then finished its maneuver. Heading out of the parking lot, same as last time. Again, we could make a right back there. Probably a slightly quicker exit. Oh, it's interesting here. Unlike last time, we were continuing straight, which I made a comment in the last video saying I feel like most people would just continue straight. So it seems like, for whatever reason, FSD is deciding to do that this time. Pedestrian to our left, we really shouldn't have any interaction with them. If you remember, there is a right turn lane here, so it would be preferential. It kind of is. It would be preferential for the car to stick as far right as it can. We do have traffic from the left. We're going to be creeping out a little bit. There is another vehicle coming. These are the kind of conditions where I would say an abundance of caution is warranted, especially where there's not as much traction. There is a little bit of automatic braking that it just did as it was pulling out. It was probably losing some grip, but you know, managed to make that turn relatively easily. I do currently have the vehicle on standard. I have used full self-driving in the past when it snowed, and in different profiles it seemed like it was able to, you know, like it didn't use those profiles I guess religiously, you know, even on hurry, the vehicle did not drive, you know, recklessly or what I would consider to be unsafely fast, given the snowy conditions. So I just want to point out that we are on standard now, just to see if there are any unique circumstances with speed control and the road conditions here. This could be an opportunity for some slippage, but no, made that left turn totally fine. Speed limit here is 25. Again, very difficult to see. I can kind of make out that there is a yellow line to our left. So we are staying within our lane, which is exactly what you want to see, despite the fact that you really, it's barely perceptible. And these are kind of these situations here where coming up to stops or traffic or, you know, red lights, you kind of want to give yourself a little bit more space to slow down, to brake. Certainly do not want to be coming right up to someone and then waiting for the last minute to brake in slippery conditions. We'll want to be getting over to the left lane because this does turn into a right turn only lane. Vehicle is choosing to remain in the right so far, okay, and we signal. Apologize for any of the snow that's going to be kicked up from vehicles in front of us. I'm sure the front windshield is going to be disgusting after this drive, but there's only so much I can do to prevent that. We'll just continue onward here to our second destination of the trip. This road's definitely cleared out a bit more. It's more of a main road, so I would expect to see that, but that doesn't mean that it isn't slick and there isn't slush and, you know. There we have those wonderful, wonderful streaks. There you go. Hopefully that helped it. Did a little bit of a robotaxi cleaning wipe there, which I can understand. It's pretty not a great, not super great clarity out the front windshield, especially in these conditions. And I've seen other people talk about that with their Teslas, you know, in the Northeast. That the wipers, the capabilities of the wipers, especially in these conditions, leave some to be desired. But continuing on here, still on standard. Speed limit is 40. We're choosing to go 44. I feel like that's reasonable, given the conditions. Wouldn't want to be going too fast, but also, you know, the roads are, or this road is clear enough that you don't necessarily have to stick straight to the 40 speed limit. You should legally, but coming up to our second destination here, a little bit of a plaza. Just again, test, see if there's any marked parking spots, and if it can find it, and where it's going to park. Pull into here. Choosing to go right. Our destination is over to the left, so let's see where it decides it wants to park. Straight ahead. Oh, interesting. Oh, interesting. So we have a takeover immediately. And FSD has disengaged. Not sure if it's because of the lack of visibility there on the rear screen. Let's see. Park assist is degraded. Camera visibility limited. Let's see. Yeah, that's, I mean, not much I can do about that right now. But it is pretty hazy. So I'm assuming that is why it had that issue. I'll clean the front camera there. Let that kind of dry itself out before we head on over to this next destination. Not sure what the parking situation is going to be. It's just a little park. So what I'll do is let's do street. Not sure if there will be a parking lot. I'm not entirely sure if I'm even going to necessarily stop. I just want to get into a different neighborhood here and, you know, see what kind of conditions we're dealing with. Make sure I clean the wiper here as much as I can before we continue on. Of course, it always does one more wipe that I feel like really messes it up, but you can sit here and try and get it clean as much as you want. See, now that's fine. It's probably going to do one more. All right, you know what? We'll just continue on. Let's see what route it decides to take. Looks like it's going to want to go behind this plaza to get out of here. It's being relatively cautious, which makes sense. There is a curb over to our left here, so looking to avoid that, which is great. And the right out of here, and then we'll be making another right out of the plaza and going to the second neighborhood. So interesting, you know, it didn't warn me prior to backing up that there were visibility issues with the rear camera. So, you know, something to think about. I know that the camera should be telling you if there are visibility issues. There is a speed bump ahead. The car does recognize that. This is kind of a pretty difficult condition here, because we have the sun shining directly on us, kind of making the entire road shine. So in, you know, coupling with the snow that's on the ground, the shining, this is certainly not an easy condition to drive through, even as a human. But seems like as of right now, FSD is handling it just fine. But going back to the lack of visibility, you know, that's something that, as you drive in these conditions, obviously cameras are going to be getting dirty, coated with this wintry mix, and that's just something that, you know, if you're not going to get notified until you go to park, or until the car goes to park itself, that, hey, it can't see, you know, those red hands are, I don't know what the solution to that is. It seemed like it was going to try to still back up, even though it chose ultimately not to, and I had to disengage it and back up myself. But okay, so this park is on the left. I have it set to street parking. It's just choosing to kind of drive over here, so we'll edit the trip, clear that out, wait till we park here. Got a car coming from our left, and we'll continue on. Another vehicle from behind us, the left, and then pull out of here. Yeah, not sure. I guess you park over here, but they're all pretty covered, so I guess, you know, the vehicle didn't really want to make that choice. Making right, and then we'll have to make a U-turn to head on out of this neighborhood. Being pretty cautious. Continuing through. No slippage there. Say it chose to go pretty cautiously, so I'll be making a left out of here and going back the way we came. So yeah, not sure what the solution is, because even a little bit of slippage, even if the car, it's interesting, even if the car told me prior to getting ready to park that there were visibility issues, I'm not sure what my solution would be. I guess as far as the AI team's concerned, or, you know, as far as the software handling those sort of issues, if there should almost be, in my mind, there should almost be like a check that the software does. And so if it's, you know, getting ready to position itself to back in, but it detects that the visibility isn't there, I feel like there should be kind of a change in decision then at that point, where vehicle says, or the software says to itself, I can't see at the back, maybe I should just try parking, you know, nose in instead, and just find a different parking space or reposition itself. Because clearly, when it put itself into reverse, there was a moment when it put itself into reverse that it determined that the visibility was degraded, limited, you know, all that, and then it threw up the red steering wheel. So clearly it knows that the conditions weren't favorable, or favorable enough for it to make that sort of maneuver. So, you know, why then can't it say, okay, the software can't back up. It's not confident backing up. Let it try to nose in. You know, if the conversation was full self-driving is what needs to be solved, me as someone who is using the software, I'm personally not going to care necessarily that the car chooses to nose in versus back into certain spots. I mean, maybe in some contextual circumstances there might be a reason to do one versus the other, but as it stands now, as a user of the software, I'd much rather it complete the drives from start to finish, if that means changing its decision to back in to then nose into a parking spot, because it cannot see, the camera visibility is limited. I'd much rather have it make that decision. And maybe it would be weird, but I would argue it'd probably be no weirder than what we just did, which was position as if we were going to back up, put the vehicle in reverse, and then just choose to sit there. I don't think it would be much weirder for the vehicle to position itself, put itself in reverse, go camera visibility limited, can't make that maneuver, or is not confident in making that maneuver, shift out of reverse, find another spot and nose in. Sure, you might be like, what is it doing? But ultimately, if its end decision was it's going to park regardless, it's going to figure out how it's going to park, and it will park itself, I would take that outcome over, hey, you need to take over immediately, because I don't know. That's just one of those things where you can see that the software is capable of many things. I feel like it would be reasonable for it to be capable enough to do those sort of checks, if that's what you want to call them, those safety checks of it's in reverse, can't see, okay, now go to plan B, which is to find a nose-in space. One of those things, though, that for the most part I would say is kind of like geography based. You know, I'm not sure that that's something that many people on the West Coast would have to deal with, especially without snow. I don't think that the vehicle would have told me to take over at all if the conditions were clear and the back camera wasn't occluded in some way. But just something, again, why I think it's interesting. You could have other people in the Northeast, you know, driving in these conditions and not have that happen because maybe their cameras don't get covered. So that's why, you know, it is important. Even if there are other creators or other people who have the software in certain areas, I think it's still important to showcase it. Because there are differences. A lot of geese on the left, I guess. None of them are going to want to choose to cross. It's a pretty common thing around here. Lots of geese. They like to cross the roads. Packs of them, herds, whatever the heck they're called. And they tend to back up a lot of traffic when they do. But looks like that's not going to be an issue for us. Heading back to our starting park here. Just see how these sort of streets are in comparison to closer towards the park as we get closer towards the end of our video here. Up here, it should signal to the left. It's a little bit of a Y. I guess you could just go straight, right, and not signal, but I feel like for people who are making turns there, it would be helpful to know if you were going left or right. making a right up ahead. The two cars in front of us are choosing to make lefts. So we are signaling, totally fine. And continuing onward. Very, very wet roads here. Probably pretty slick as the snow begins to melt. This entire drive has stayed in standard so far, and as we come towards the end, I don't think I'm going to change that, but I feel like it was driving the right speeds the entire time. Didn't really have to go up or down at all. It's handling these winding roads pretty well, so nothing really to say. Signaling left, which I would agree with, and then getting back into snow-covered roads here. No other vehicles here right now, so we'll see what it decides to do as far as parking. I personally don't think it's gonna. Has its left signal on? Interesting. Okay. And there we go again. Take over immediately. So put us in reverse. I'll just finish the parking job for us. There. So there we go. A repeatable issue there with the takeover immediately. Rear camera visibility limited. Something to note, something to think about for future drives. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed first look at 14.2.2.2. Some limitations there, but overall I would say that it handled the conditions really well. I hope you guys enjoyed, and look forward to seeing you guys on the next video. See ya.